All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much for joining us wherever you're watching from, whether it's live or after the fact. If you are taking a look at the episode now, you know that we do have an awesome show on tap for you guys, celebrating the 35th anniversary of Tales from the Crypt. Super excited about a part of my upbringing in terms of my foray into being a fan of horror, especially horror anthologies. So just to give a quick rundown of the show in and of itself, it was, of course, adapted using stories from a variety of comics. Aside from Tales from the Crypt, it also adapted stories from The Haunt of Fear, The Vault of Horror, crime suspense stories, shock suspense stories, and Two Fisted Tales. Tales from the Crypt, the award-winning horror anthology series, which would many people, forget about this, would inspire, HBO's slogan. And it's not TV, it's HBO. It actually inspired their said slogan because of its the nature of its material. Would premiere in June of 1989. Originally envisioned as a film, it would eventually be made into a series lasting for 7 years. Now, as I said, in lieu of it coming up on its 35th anniversary, I figured that it'd be fun to celebrate this anniversary by sitting down with the star of the first aired series. Notice I did say the first aired and not the first films, because fun trivia, there was the second episode was in fact, which is known as and All Through the House, was the first filmed episode, and The Man Who Was Deaf was the first aired episode. I don't know if many folks recall that, but I wanted to, as I said, sit down with the star of the first aired episode. It was originally published as a William. This episode, The Man Who Was Deaf, was originally published by William M. Gaines uh, as the comic magazine titled Tales from the Crypt. The episode was directed by Walter Hill, which follows an executioner named Niles Talbot, who takes glee in his job but spirals out of control when he loses his sense of purpose upon losing that said job. So I want to now get into our guests. Of course, they do not need any introduction. They have had a career that has spanned multiple, decades, whether it's in films such as Shawshank Redemption, of course, as we are talking now of the Tales from the Crypt television series, as well as in the films, as well as The Mist and many others. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show Mr. Bill Sadler. Let me bring him on now. Bill, how you doing? Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm doing well, thank you. How are you, Brandon?
I'm good. I'm good. So just to kind of get things up and running, can you talk about how that first initial involvement came about in being a part of Tales from the Crypt?
Um, well, it almost didn't happen. I was sent by my agent. I was sent to audition for the part of the cop at the end who arrests Niles Talbot. Um, and he has, I think he has one line. He has the Miranda rights. He says, "Mr. Talbot, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, you can't cut." And then we cut to, his trial and so on. And I did that. I went to the Fox office building on the Fox lot, and Karen Ray was the casting agent, and I finished the audition, and I said, "Listen, what's up with the role of Talbot?" And she said, "Oh, they want a star for that. They're going out to whoever, John Malkovich and people like that. They want a star. They want a name." And I said, "Oh, thank you," and I left. And I got halfway across the parking lot, and she stuck her head out the window of her office, which was on the first floor, and said, "Bill, come back." And I came back, and she handed me the sides, one of the speeches that Niles Talbot does right into the camera. He does a lot of talk, these big long monologues right into the camera. And she said, "Come back on Monday and do this. We'll put you on tape, but black out your teeth and slick your hair, and you're you're too cute. You're too pretty." Um, so so I went home and I learned the speech, and I came back and I did it with a cigarette. You could smoke back then, and I did it with a cigarette, but I did it right into lens. And having done acres and acres and 11 years of theater in New York, I could do monologues. Um, they're easy. And I guess she showed it to Walter Hill and Joel Silver and so on. And they said, "Oh, shit, that's it. Yeah. He's, he, he's a scary, creepy dude. Um, we could, we could use him." So Walter Hill shot it. They paid me $1,700, and we shot it in a week. And Walter was great because I was really pretty green. I had not been in front of a camera a lot, and Walter already had directed I don't know how many movies, and he was great at explaining, like, you know, you don't need to do anything. Just talk, just be yourself, you know, find the attitude and just let it fly. And I had a great time. Hill used to write. He wrote. He's one of the writers on that script, and he did a. I used to come into work. I'd show up on the set, and he'd be scribbling on a piece of paper, and he'd say, "Read this," and I would I would read it, and he would laugh, and 20 minutes later, we're shooting it. So it had to be really quick. Um, you know, but he knew the character. He knew this guy, and it was sort of like he had an actor in front of him who also knew the guy. So we had um, there was a real easy communication um, about who he was, and I had a blast. I really had fun shooting it, and a lot of it was like guerrilla filmmaking. I think he was used to big budgets, and you got a crew of dozens and dozens and trucks and schedules and so on. This had to be shot in 1 week, the whole thing. And so we pulled up on a bridge. There's a scene where overlooking the 405
Yeah, I remember.
highway, I think it is.
And you're looking
There's
into the
cars
camera.
going, and I do a little monologue into the. I like electricity. It's clean, or something like that. And we just pulled up in a van, jumped out of the. We didn't have permits or anything, Jumped out of the van. Walter said, "Stand here, ready, go." And and that's how it went. It was like, you know, quick and quick and dirty.
So, and speaking of that, actually, I guess verifies just that idea. I understand that Walter Hill, had specified the way that you auditioned this, I want you to do it exactly the way that you did. So there is, some truth to that. Cause I know sometimes, you're able to kind of, experiment with things a lot of times when you're in a given role, more so than what you have in your audition once you book it.
Did
But
did he
from
did he say that?
I was saying, I guess what is out there, I'll say,
Oh,
is just the idea that he had specified. Please just do it exactly the way that you had
yeah.
captured it there in that audition.
Well,
Um,
I did. I pretty much did. I did exactly what I did in the audition. This guy looks right into the lens, and he has this really dark sense of humor. Talking about executing people and uh, how clean electricity is. Shot her in the neck, she died big as hell. And all these tough guys, they scream, warden's gonna call, warden's gonna call. I
and
was
I was
like,
gonna go
I,
ahead.
yeah, no, I, I guess I came up with the character to do the audition. I figured I put him in the South, and I made him a redneck, uh, a bit of a redneck, and and Walter was just fine with that. It was like that's good stuff. And I think it was actually the episode was nominated for an Ace Award by HBO,
Yeah, for sure.
and didn't win it. But I ended up working with Walter again in a movie called Trespass,
Yes, yes.
um, with Bill Paxton and iced tea, and I was iced coffee, and it was like, and but Walter just, I mean, I guess Walter just liked, I don't know, he liked working with me. I liked working with him.
And it,
We had a nice easy back and forth. Um,
I was gonna say, and
so
to
yeah,
speak further about Miles. I don't know if did you when it was on television. Are you familiar with Dexter, like the series Dexter?
yes,
So yeah, I was gonna say, in speaking to that character, I feel like your character Niles was Dexter before there was Dexter. I feel because there is that element of that character having this sense of they can't help themselves based on he can't help himself based on this need or this urge to do what he does for a living, but he tries to rationalize it for himself in terms of those that he goes after in order to carry that out.
right.
Um so I found that fascinating, but in
He's got a real vigilante streak in him.
yes.
And he starts going after people who got off on technicalities. He sits in courtrooms, and when he sees people who he's sure they're guilty, but the judge lets them go on some technicality, he follows them home and makes sure they, he keeps executing people until they catch him, of course, at the end of the episode. And by then
Right.
they've reinstated the death penalty. So, uh, and there's a new kid that he trained who works at the prison. So there's this terrible irony. He ends up, you know,
And I
where
was
he's
gonna say, there's a lot of fun irony throughout that entire episode because if folks are listening carefully, at the top of that episode, you have that prisoner who goes after folks, his boss at work because he felt like he wasn't paid appropriately. And in that same vein, you have a similar circumstance with your character as well, where he kind of is brushed aside by his employer. And in the same way, it plays out slightly differently or executed slightly differently, pun not intended. But it's still a matter of he finds himself in that chair because of his feeling like his employer kind of brushed him aside. It's
right.
really like
Well, his,
hilarious
he goes off on his own, killing
and
people
does his own thing.
because he gets fired from the prison. He can't be the executioner anymore, which is what he always was, and so he gets laid off and goes off and moonlights doing the same thing, and then they reinstate the death penalty. It's what it did. It's interesting. The the movie itself, the show, it sort of launched the show. It helped launch the show. Um, but it also, I mentioned that I had auditioned for Karen Ray to play the cop,
Mm-hmm.
who has a very, he's got one line at the end. There's no, there's he's there, but it's not showy. It's not, it's not Niles. It's not the lead. Joel Silver, who was the one of the producers on it, later did Die Hard 2
Right.
and
So we know the
decided
story there.
this this executioner might might be just what we were looking for.
Right.
And while I was on the set of Tales from the Crypt, one of the people that they hired to write, one of the writers on the set was Frank Darabont,
Of course,
who,
yes.
who did, went on to do, and he came up to me on the set and said, I've got this, I'm going to do this movie. I've got this script. It's called Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. And I'd like to send it to you. And I said, that's great. Send it to me. I'd love to read it. And what he sent was the anthology. He didn't send the script. He sent the book. That's the Stephen King collection of stories. And Rita Hayworth is one of them, one of the stories in that book. But I mean, he said that, and I thought, yeah, right. Of course, everybody in Hollywood's got a movie script in their pocket, and they're all gonna get made, and we're all gonna go, But it ended up, I ended up doing from that encounter, from that episode that I did with Walter, the man who was death. I met Frank Darabont, who I got on his radar, and so Shawshank happened. Then The Green Mile happened. Then The Mist happened. Walter Hill went on to do Trespass with me, and so why Karen Ray stuck her head out the window of the casting office and said, "Bill, come back here." I was gone. I was almost in my car.
It was
On
meant
my
to
way,
be, man.
on my
It
way,
was meant to be.
back to my house, thinking, "Well, that was bullshit." I didn't. I I drove all this way and did this audition, and all I said was, "Mr. Talbot, you have the right to remain silent. Thank you."
I was gonna say, and speaking more on that character of Talbot, I mean, you alluded to some of those components of that character that you wanted to realize in terms of how the viewer interpreted, which is with the draw that he has of being a redneck of having a slick back hair and all the appearance and all of that. Could you also talk about some of the moments that he has that really inform that character? Because I feel like there are a lot of, even though he has a element of that vigilante streak that you talked about, there is a sadistic quality to him too, where you have those moments where he said that he likes to look into the eyes of like the
Right,
like, well,
right.
was that always there, or was
Yeah.
it just a choice to say, oh, you know what, I'm gonna try this too and see,
No, no, no.
provide for the
No, that was there. He was a cruel ass mother. He said that at one, and that was in the script. They designed this guy to be. Um, they say that electricity is so quick, it's so fast prisoner doesn't feel a thing. I
I don't
hate to,
like that.
I hate to
Hate
think
that,
that's
right?
true.
It's like, what? Right, he does it again.
But
Oh
it's
man,
just like look out at the camera and say, I hate to think that's true.
right. Yeah,
And cook this poor son of a bitch. It's like he's not a nice he's not a nice man, he's sadistic, uh, you know, he's just a sadistic bastard. So it's great that you know, he gets the perfect poetic comeuppance at the end. Um, but I think what I find remarkable was that it opened the door for uh, it just opened the door for me as an actor in Los Angeles. I hadn't I I forget what else I had done by that point. 89. I hadn't there wasn't much else. Um, and it's a it's a it isn't often that you can point to a moment, you know, when I asked Karen Ray, what's up with the role of Talbot, you know, and put that idea in her head. And she thought, I could, well, sure, I'll put him on tape. I'll show him, you know, if it's not good, I won't show it to the producers. And if it's interesting, if it's good, okay. But but I could have walked out the door. I mean, I did walk out the door. I could have just said thank you and left. And I don't know what lesson there is there. I was very, I was very, very fortunate that it was her, it was Karen Ray casting it, because there are a lot
Hey,
of
well, I
cast.
just say
There
you
are
say
lots
I
of.
don't know what lesson to be learned. Being ready for the moment, I suppose. Like, just being ready for what comes. Something unexpected that comes, and being ready to kind of take advantage of it. I
I
guess
was,
I don't
and
know.
I was just hungry for it.
Yep.
I had all this training and 11 years of theater and a year and a half on Broadway with Biloxi Blues before I ever did my first movie. Um, so I was, and I moved to Los Angeles, and I don't know a soul. You know, you know no one, and you don't know how to get in. You don't know how to open doors. You don't know how to. Um, it's a, it's a, it's a hard town to impress. Um, you know, and theater doesn't. I don't think theater means very much to, or didn't, to the agents that I had and the producers and directors that I saw. They all want to see film on you, and there wasn't any. I didn't have a reel that I could show them. I said, "Oh, this is me saying two lines in this thing and two lines in that thing." It's a hard town to get your foot in the door. Um, and anyway, this is a long story short. It isn't often that you can point to a moment and say, that was almost everything else in my career. Shawshank led to other things, and so on.
Well, and speaking to that too, aside from the what was there on the page and help to inform that character for you, another component of it that I found really interesting because I had watched it again today after it's been a while, but it's one of my favorite episodes among like the spectrum of Tales from the Crypt episodes is. And I didn't even realize this before, but I mean, it probably plays a factor, and sometimes it plays a factor. Some of those elements, and without you even realizing why you like it so much, is the choice that was also made with the camera, in terms of how we're introduced to Niles, where he has
Mm,
a very grandiose perception of himself. And so a lot of times what you see when you have, they call it, I guess you could call it like the hero perspective. A lot of times you're looking up at the character versus looking down at the character. A lot of people take for granted how like that camera angle can play a role in how you perceive that character. And when we're first introduced to that character, and a lot of times when he's given his soliloquies and his monologues, it provides some insight into him, at least in my opinion, of in his head this grandiose like version or idea of himself. And it,
Right.
it it changes as the episode continues, but at least initially we're looking up at him as if he's like, yeah, I'm up here, and
Gigantic.
I'm very enlightened in terms of
Right.
like my position and my idea of death and all of that. So
Well, that's also Walter. Walter's. I give him credit for that because if you lower the camera and look up at the character, subconsciously the audience is thinking, "Oh my God, this guy is huge."
right,
You
exactly,
know,
exactly.
he's huge and he's frightening. They did it in Die Hard 2. They did it. You know, I'm not a I'm not a very tall actor, but it's easy on film um, to get that get the audience's perception that you're much bigger than they don't even realize that that's what they're thinking. You know what I mean? It's just
Exactly.
you're just, oh, I'm looking up at him. He must be taller than me. He's this big dude. Um, yeah, yeah. I'm very grateful to Walter and Joel Silver and Karen Ray, and Dick Donner was one of the producers on it. I worked for him. Bob Zemeckis was one of the producers on
Of
that.
course. Yeah.
The original guys.
Yes. Yeah.
It was. I was just in the right place at the right time and asked the right question. Um, and it wasn't the only time that Karen Ray stepped in and gave me a little helping hand. Um, I really should. I should buy her dinner or something. I think she's retired now, and we live on two different coasts. Um, but I have her to thank for having the flexibility and the balls to or whatever women have. I don't think they have balls. They have something. They have boobs or
Yes.
something. They have other courage. Um,
Yes. Yes.
to say, yeah, I'll do that. I can do that.
Well. Let me ask this.
Take the initiative.
I was going to say, let me ask this, Bill. I know you were saying at the top of how finite the amount of time was in being able to shoot this episode, and from what I understand, and I could be wrong about this, so I wanted to verify it from you. Is I guess it's been brought up that like in doing this show, because of the nature of the show and how some episodes are more graphic than others. Obviously, it's a horror show. Is that you guys had to, in essence, shoot two different episodes? So like shoot the version that you guys that was the more, I guess, explicit version, and then maybe you guys had to, did you have to switch certain lines to make it appropriate for um
Well,
to make it appropriate after the fact, or did that come later
that happened in
in
Trespass.
post later?
In Trespass, Walter
Okay.
would do that because um, this was HBO.
Right, right.
It was early HBO, but it was HBO, so we could say you could.
So that
They
came
were
later.
they weren't worried about language
Yeah.
um, because this was designed to be on HBO. Um, when I did Trespass, Walter did this really clever thing where we would do the scene, um, with Ice-T and Ice Cube and all of these actors, and was swearing up a storm. We're just like, everything is
Right.
mother, and just, and Walter let him go. Just go, do it, say it.
Right, right, right.
Whatever you want, whatever, you make this script yours, is what he said. Make it come out the way you would say it. And, and they did. And as soon as he had the scene shot the way he wanted it, he would go back and shoot a clean version. So all the actors everybody's still hot. Everybody knows their actions. Everybody knows their lines. You just have to leave out all of the language that couldn't appear on television, at the time. Um, but otherwise, you have to go back years, months later, and stand in a sound stage and go, uh, "Why you dirty, rotten apple sucker?"
Right.
You what, motor motor frapping. You have to make up, you know. You're full of shirts.
Right,
You have to make up words that look like your mouth.
right, right.
Something that's coming out of your mouth, but they're but they're and they just stick them in, and that you can always tell when you're watching a movie, when you see somebody get really mad and it comes out like, you mortar tripper, and you think, yeah, well, that didn't work. So
Absolutely.
Walter was really smart that way. It was like, shoot it dirty, shoot it, you know, with all the language. Now take the language out and shoot it again quick. While everybody's here, while everybody's hot, just leave out all of that stuff. And I don't have to spend the next month in a soundstage picking through it and, you know, changing every shit to shoot, and
Right, right.
every goddamn to gosh darn, and every it was like, and in those and in that movie there was a lot of it. There was just a lot of it. I mean, especially the Ice-T and Ice Cube, man. There was some colorful language coming out of them, and it was great. It was great. But Walter was smart enough to know this. I'm never gonna, we're gonna sit in a soundstage. It's gonna take us months to clean this up. You know.
Well, I wanted to talk about, because you did mention at the top, and I wanted to save a space to be able to briefly go over it, and that is the impact of the series, of course. Um, I'm sure it's, or maybe it is lost on you. I hope it's not lost on you on how much this series has meant for like so many folks, and how it is. I know, like for me, it was a gateway into getting into, like I said, horror anthologies, and just that idea of hold on, let's see, give us a second, folks. I think I just lost Bill just for a second here. I just had him here. Give us 1 second. See if we can get him back. I think we just lost him. One moment. Give us 1 second, guys. Just lost Mr. Sadler for a second. Get him back on here.
Who?
Yes, here we go. Here we go. Have you back here, Mr. Sadler. I don't know if you can hear me. Yes. Oh no, did we give you a second here? Give us 1 second, folks. All right. Mr. Bill, can you hear me? Okay. I'm not able to hear you. So I was gonna say try coming off and coming back on. I'm going to give him a 1 more second, folks. Thanks again so much for joining us. Being able to reflect, as I said, almost on the 35th anniversary of Tales from the Crypt. Chatting with Bill Sadler. And give him a second to come back on. Let's see here. Should be on momentarily. Okay, let's see if we have him back here. Looks like we do. See if he can hear me. Hi, Bill. Can you hear me? Bill, can you hear me? All right, here we go. All right, so we're back. Um, no, it's all good. But no, I know before we lost you there. I just wanted to just get into that idea. You talked about it at the top, and I wanted to be able to address it directly and give Tom for it. Is just the impact of the series. I know hopefully it's not lost on you on how much the impact the show has had on so many people, and to say that you are at the beginning of that of how big that was it is insane. And
Thank you.
for that series, that show was basically, if it weren't for that show, I probably wouldn't be sitting here in front of you right now talking about horror stuff. Reflecting back on the anniversary, it was my gateway into anthology horror,
Right.
horror content. So,
Wow.
um, I mean, of course, there were films that came before, but I wouldn't have even bothered looking back before this series had it not been for Tales from the Crypt. So
Well, thank you. I think I it's funny. I do you don't become aware of stuff like that until years later. It's like I'm sure the guys who did Star Trek, the original Star Trek had can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you. I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Um, if you could have gone back and asked William Shatner or Leonard Nimoy if you know is this going to change sci-fi forever? Um, is this going to be the only role that people associate you with? I don't think any of them realized at the time. I certainly didn't realize at the time that Tales from the Crypt was going to, it was still, there were 3 episodes that started the series that they shot. And they
Yeah,
said, we'll shoot 3, we'll show them. If it's, show them to HBO. HBO can put them on. And if it goes, it goes. And if it doesn't, we we paid him
were you? Let me ask. Were you in that
$1,700.
stage? Were you in that stage where was it still being conceived? Because if I recall, it was being originally conceived as a film. So did that were you all had that already changed over to it being a series by the time
Yeah,
you got on board, or did it
it
happen
it
after?
was by the time I was there, it was. I mean, when I got involved, it was 3 episodes that were going to launch a series of
Got it.
episodes.
Got it.
I'd never heard about a film. I mean, they may have discussed it, but and I was lucky enough to be involved in the Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight.
Of
Um,
course. Of
that
course.
that
Yes. Of
came
course.
that came later, but it
Of
grew out of
course.
it was the same. It was the same producer with Joel Silver. It was the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
It was the same gang.
Yeah.
Uh, and the same, and the same idea. It was sort of this natural. I guess they had always had it in the back of their minds. We're going to make a movie out of some of this, um, but the. But I don't think anybody. I certainly didn't. I'm glad to hear that it's been. You know, it's been important to a whole generation of people who grew up watching it from week to week to week to week, in the same way that I grew up with Rod Serling's Twilight Zone or,
Of course. Yeah.
uh, you know, every week or Alfred Hitchcock's Presents. Every week
Yep.
there's another awful story that kills you. By the end of it, you're dead. Um, but anyway, it's good to hear that Tales from the Crypt did that too. And
Definitely. Definitely.
it became this thing. It was like everybody in Hollywood wanted, after it was going for a while, it was like,
The
Arnold
guest stars. Yeah.
Schwarzenegger wanted to be,
Yeah.
Don Rickles, everybody in show business wanted to do an episode because it was cool, I guess. Um,
Well, I feel like this weaves into, how I like to close a lot of these conversations in talking about anniversaries and being able to reflect on prior work is, and you probably remember this from before when I had you when we were talking Shawshank is, just talking about reflecting on, okay, these are components that I'm most proud of. And I mean, some of it you tease right now, but maybe there's something, very specific that you're most proud of in doing Tales from the Crypt. And then even reflecting on, would there be something that I would do differently? And it's not necessarily that you regret anything, maybe, but, maybe there wasn't an opportunity to do more of something or to work with someone more or, something along those lines. It may not be something like,
I I guess I don't have any specific regrets about things that I would do differently.
yeah,
Um, I guess I would try to pay more attention to who was around me. When I'm working, I tend to get pretty insular and focused, which helps the acting. It's not necessarily great for your career that, you were working with all of these people and you could have gone out to lunch with them or partied with them or I've never really been a I've never really been good at socializing.
playing the game of playing
Yeah,
the
never
network.
took yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah,
exactly. I
yeah,
never took
yeah.
up golf so that I could go golfing with
Right.
producers
Sure.
and my wife was always saying, well, that's where all the deals are made. I I don't know. I'm a farm boy from Buffalo. I don't, and I'm a one-trick pony. You know, I'm I'm very good at this acting thing. I'm not all that good at um, hanging out and going to clubs and, you know, putting on the throwing parties and inviting just the right people and
Right, right,
that
right.
that kind of thing. I've always sort of thought, well, if the work is good, they'll find you.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
which which is true to some degree. If I could change anything about my career, I guess I might change that. I would be more.
Okay. What about
Yeah,
on the other side of it? I mean, you said a lot, a lot of the things in essence that you were proud of, but maybe, there's something very specific or singular for you that haven't commented on yet that you wanted to also address as something that you're proud of
that I'm
with
proud
the
of.
work. Yeah. And doing Tales from the
I,
Crypt.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think Tales from the Crypt. Once I once I did that episode, um, and things started happening in other Frank Darabont uh, had other projects for me, and Joel Silver had projects for me, and it created a lot
A
of
gateway to other
I guess
things.
I guess I was proud. I was proud of that. I was proud of that episode because it came. I didn't. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting it to happen. You know that. Uh, I'd be given this way to talk right to the camera and be the asshole that be this vicious murderer with this dark sense of
Macabre.
humor.
Yeah.
And it lit up. It just said, people went, oh crap. you know he likes electricity. oh, oh man. And I met Frank Zappa because of it, and I met, it's like it just like kicked open it kicked open the doors. After it came out, I was off doing other stuff. I never, I don't, I guess I appeared in one or two other episodes, but it was just very briefly. I didn't really have much invested in it until the movie happened, and then I was, with Billy Zane and Jada Pinkett, and that was
Of
just
course.
totally.
And Thomas Hayden Church, like it's an insane list of folks that are a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, get out there.
I think back on like
CCA.
how that could have been made today. That cast was insane. So
No, you couldn't get those people together.
today, no.
Or that would cost a shitload. But
Yeah.
it was, you know, and it was fantastic. It was just fantastic fun to shoot. Um, again, on a shoestring. They shot it in an airplane hangar, an abandoned airplane hangar in Sherman Oaks. They didn't even have a sound stage. They had pigeons in the sea, up in the rafters. Then
I
the
remember this story. Yeah, with
pigeons
the
made noise through all of the scenes, and they kept trying to chase them out and scare them away, and uh, but I mean, what am I? I guess I'm proud that it opened the door for a lot of other actors, and including Frank Darabont,
yeah,
you know, writers and actors and producers. And if it's had a good influence on the industry, um, uh, I guess I could be proud of that.
yeah, definitely,
I
definitely.
don't I don't look back that often. I was like, oh, I, it was a good episode. It was a good episode, and then it was over, and I went on and did other stuff. And the fact that you know, it's true of every movie, every TV show. You do it, and then you go home,
Right.
and it goes out to Ohio, and
Yeah, it goes out to the masses.
Michigan and Canada, and it's translated into Spanish and it goes to Mexico, and it's like people it and you never really know how it's affecting people sitting in their living room in Ohio watching the Shawshank Redemption, or the Tales from the Crypt series. Um,
For
you're
sure.
you're not a party to that.
Until, of course, maybe you go to an event or something, and you
Yeah,
know
or
realize its impact.
you go to a
Yeah,
convention and you meet and you meet people, and it's just one after another who says, "I loved you in," or "I've watched this with my father before he died, and it meant so much to me." It was really, sometimes they're really amazing stories, wonderful stories, but um, but it's a career. You know what I mean? It's like they're like paintings. You do them, and then it's what's the
it's
next
there for
what's,
other folks to enjoy while you move on to the next thing.
what's the next painting? What's the next?
Right. Exactly.
What's
Exactly.
you know? Um, and it's fun to hear that it had an impact. It's really fun. It's fun. That's heartening to hear that people grew up with Tales from the Crypt with the series, and found it fun, and you know
For sure.
made them decide to go into the business, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely, man.
I want
So
to do I want to do that. Yeah, good luck.
So with that said, Bill, thank you, for spending some time today and reflecting on Tales from the Crypt, on this episode, on the man who was deaf. Before I let you go, as I always do, can you tell folks where they can find you, and perhaps what you have happening in the near future, perhaps?
Right now, right now things are a wee bit quiet. Um, there's a film called Salem's Lot that's supposed to come out soon.
Salem's Lot. He's like a little small film called Salem's Lot.
It's a little small film. It's a tiny little film called Salem's Lot that I think it was gonna be very good. I hope it's very good. I
Like
haven't
the
I have
Salem's Lot? The
these
Salem's Lot. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. I love how you're like, "Oh, yeah, just some small film called Salem's Lot." Like, it's like a classic.
yeah, the Stephen King movie.
Yeah.
Um, and I did one with with Karen Allen, excuse me. And and that one really is an indie that was done for very little money in 18 days or something, um, called A Stage of Twilight, that
Okay.
people can look for. Um, it's playing in theaters now in some places. A Stage of Twilight, and it's a beautiful movie. Uh, it may be a thing that I'm already proud of it. I should stop being so proud of things. Um,
And your
but
music, right?
but I'm great. Yeah, and I have an album of songs called William Sadler, The Kitchen Tapes, which, if you're interested, you can you can go to therealwilliamsadler.com or William Sadler at Bandcamp and have a look, or wherever you get your music. Apple Music has it, and
Okay.
you know, um, so there you have it.
Awesome.
And now I
Awesome.
got to go pick up a 5-year-old granddaughter.
Gotcha. Well, again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movies and Shakers Unlimited. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there.